Okay.
That's the first thing.
Oh, I believe it. I thought I got it in your shoes.
Did you get what I sent you last week?
I did. We had something on the paper this week. We did. It was in
How are you, sir?
Get that old road, go around.
Don't get too close.
You'll never say.
Did Ronnie talk to you?
Everybody's got.
Yeah, we talked briefly.
It's storming.
a couple of them.
I never have.
Y'all want to talk about things and get with me or what?
That's what happened.
We don't go fight it.
How things going everywhere?
Okay.
Mark,
A lot of confusion.
I've never been so busy. Usually it's just constant. It's constant conference calls, it's constant email, phone calls. It's just incessant.
Well, we're uncharted water.
How much do you have to say?
I haven't had one.
You there, Chester?
That's why she's doing it.
Okay. Just call back. Just call back if we lose you.
The portal was closed.
We're getting ready to start in about a minute.
That one did work.
You all ready?
And one good thing about Bishop is that Dogwood Health Trust has funded them with enough to go ahead and make the loan.
Okay. I'll tell her. I mean, because nobody has been advertising the doctor, everywhere's closed, so she doesn't do something, the doctor closes the newspaper. I applied for a grant for her today that was helping newspapers instead of covering it, so I don't know if that'll.
Did you do the economic injury? I
I don't think so.
I'm employed, so she
11. She won't do a loan.
But this is, EIDL's got
The 10,000. That's what I tried to tell her. She's taking like Carla here is her accountant. So she's letting her like she's doing what she's telling her to do.
Well, she's got 11 employees, she can get 10.
But we need to contact.
I'll tell her.
It's still there.
I need to look at Mark.
Let's see, you still on for a meeting?
Yes, sir.
Next Monday?
Yeah, is that going to
Who
be?
you buying it from?
Strickland.
I think we're all coming in here.
Now the Stricklands, Bill,
Emery called me today.
you gonna wrap her up?
Ready to, yeah, we're ready. All right, I'm going to call the April 14th meeting of the Macon County Board of Commissioners to order. I guess as those of you that are online are easily seeing that things are a little bit different tonight as we adhere to the social distancing guidelines set forth by our governor of the state of North Carolina. Over the last several weeks, as we have been dealing with this pandemic, I couldn't help but think of a little phrase that we had to memorize when I was, I think, a freshman in high school. And it was a Charles Dickens quote. And that quote is, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, it was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity, it was the season of light, it was the season of darkness, it was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair." Things are just strange right now. As a commissioner, it's the busiest that I've personally ever been. There's daily emails, there's daily calls, there's daily conference calls. The media has been very active, there's a lot to keep up with. But we're doing the best we can as a county. And I hope we, and I'm speaking for all of us as commissioners, are all proud of how hard that our staff has been working. Because just about everybody's job duties have changed in one way or the other. And I couldn't be more proud of how each organization has morphed and made the changes that they needed to help our county move forward and to help the safety and welfare of all the citizens of our county. So with that being said, things are different tonight, so y'all bear with us. I'm not an IT expert, but I got one to my left, so hopefully he can help me work through some of the phone issues. But I know we're going to have people calling in through public comment. So are there any announcements before we start taking phone calls? Anybody else like to say anything? All right, we'll go ahead and get started with our public comment. We're going to take public comment for about, Mr. Manager, 30 minutes is what we roughly said, about 30 minutes. So with that, we'll be going through one. I'm going to ask each caller to state their name and address so we might be able to get a glimpse of who they are. And I appreciate everyone's patience as we work through this. So with this going on, we'll go ahead and get started with call number one. Nobody's there. Somebody call in?
He's going to call now.
Got one call in.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You're talking to somebody?
If somebody calls in, I'll drop a question. On the notification that was sent out, was the procedure for calling in attached to that?
It was. Mr. Manager.
It was in the public notice, yes. The public notice highlighted the procedure for calling in. It's posted on our website and emailed to all media outlets.
All right, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am here.
All right, if you'll state your name and address for the record, please, and then proceed.
All right, my name is David Hurd, and I'm going to be talking on the Second Amendment proposition and all there. Okay, good evening, Commissioner, Sheriff Holland, and fellow citizens. My name is David Hurd. I'm a resident of Macon County. Thank you for allowing us to exercise our First Amendment right to speak to you again this evening regarding the Second Amendment thing that was passed last month. Tonight I will read my speech, or I might end up in jail by exercising that right, and I might out anyhow. You folks say you want people to attend these meetings, yet you do not listen and act according to your words, but come up with your own ideas, not what your constituents ask for. I thought you were supposed to represent we the people. Some made the statement saying they would support the proposal Donnie Holden gave to this group, which incidentally you asked for, if the word sanctuary were to be removed, then reneged on that statement by not voting accordingly. Your lawyer wrote something. No one is sure what it was, yet it took 6 pages to say it, and he used petitions from other counties as examples, yet nothing he wrote even remotely resembles any of them. He is a political lawyer because of his use of many words without having said anything. Yet you accepted that without even it being read to the public because it would take so long to read it. It was only 6 pages long. I have a copy of the map of North Carolina counties that have passed Second Amendment proposals. I want each one of you to have. I hope you have those. I want you to notice the color of Macon County and read the legend above about shading of counties. You will notice Macon County is a totally different color, and the description states one county resolution to support laws and the Constitution. Even the admin of that group has no idea what exactly you passed that evening, nor does anyone else for that matter. You did Macon County really proud, and you should also be very proud. Thank you for allowing me to speak, although I'm not sure at all if you are hearing me. And God bless America, and thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. We did hear you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye.
I guess we'll sit patiently and see if we have another call. While we're waiting for other calls to come in, Mr. Manager, it'd be okay if we proceed just to any additions to the agenda or adjustments, and we'll circle back.
Yes. Yes, sir. There's no other calls as of right now.
All right, can we move forward and then we'll just circle
Sure.
back if we do get a call? Are there any additions to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, did everybody get the email from Mr. Lowe from HCA today? Mr. Manager, did you get that email?
I'm not sure. I didn't receive an email from HCA today. I don't think.
I received one, but I have not opened it yet.
You didn't open it? Okay. It was just an update on where we're at locally with a rural hospital. So we'll make sure that if you didn't get that, we'll make sure that you got it.
Did it say what you know or
Yes, I can open it without this phone going crazy.
Mr. Chairman, if I could we remove item number 11E from the agenda, please?
Okay.
11E?
Any other changes? All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gillespie, second by Commissioner Bill, all in favor?
Aye.
I would like to get us to rise and observe a moment of silence and offer the pledge, but there we do that, and then we'll take it if it, as soon as we finish. Commissioner Shields, I'm going to ask you to lead us, please, after the moment of silence, please.
Fella, so, but he was a long time, I guess he worked Robbie, I don't know how many years.
20 years.
Yeah, so he, Brian's been battling and so we lost a good former employee, a good friend, and a good man.
All right, Mr. Manager, would you like to proceed with reports and presentations, and then we'll just stop if we do get a call in? Or what do you recommend?
Yes, sir. The Board of Health will be calling in at 6:40. So 6:40, 6:45. So we can proceed with 9B, and with the updates, should we have a call, we'll just cease that
Okay.
and carry on that way.
Sounds good. Would you like to proceed with Mr. Jenkins since he's here? Start with 9C
Sure.
first.
Sure.
Weren't expecting that, were you?
Oh, boy. You stayed on the very
Welcome,
end.
Tommy.
You show up, you get to speak.
That's right.
That's all you gotta do is show up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners. County Manager Mr. Oakland asked me to come by and give a small update on available programs that the federal government and the state is doing right now for economic development assistance for small businesses. As you know, on March 27th, Congress passed the CARES Act, which is a $2 trillion, excuse me, it's hard to say $2 trillion package to address the economic impact of COVID-19. This act included substantial assistance for small businesses. First program is a paycheck protection program, which was funded up to $349 billion for forgivable loans to small businesses to retain their employees during the COVID-19 crisis. It provides small businesses with funds to pay up to 8 weeks of payroll costs, including benefits. Funds can also be used for interest on mortgages, rent, and utilities. The loan equals 250% of the employer's average monthly wage. So in other words, you would take your average monthly payroll rate, wage, and multiply that by 2.5 for your to get your loan amount. The loan can be fully forgiven when used for payroll costs, interest on mortgages, rents, and utilities over an 8-week period from the time the loan is dispersed. So it is fully forgivable. If it goes beyond that and you have not met those requirements, it is a 1% interest rate for a term up to 2 years. Now, to apply for this loan, you don't go through SBA, you go through a private lender, SBA approved lender, your bank, which most of our financial institutions in Franklin are doing that, and Highlands. There has been some hiccups in the program, as you've heard. I'm sure y'all have heard. It's been hard to, SBA has tweaked the rules, I guess, continuously for the last month, which really, you can't fault SBA because when you run out a $350 billion program in 2 weeks and try to get it up and running without some hiccups, that's going to be hard to do. But it is working. I've spoken with several of our lenders. They are processing loans as fast as they can get them and understand the changing guidelines that they receive. So every application they've got to tweak those applications to fit those guidelines. But I've spoken to several of our larger lenders who are in the process of lending them. I just read today where North Carolina has been approved for $5.7 billion in PPP loans. So my advice to people who we've worked with at the EDC who have voiced some frustration, so just continue to work with your lender, work with your accountant to understand the process. And once you get in the queue, stay in the queue, stay in the line, and they'll get to you eventually. So, any questions on the paycheck protection?
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, comments?
Mr. Deacon, you give us a lot of updates, send us out to everyone, so I appreciate it. It keeps us in the know of what's going on at another level.
I appreciate that.
That's been very helpful, Tom. Thank you.
Got a couple of more programs I would like to mention. The other federal program that I think is important is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. What's appealing about this program is, and perked a lot of ears, is that it makes available a $10,000 advance when you apply for the EIDL loan. And that advance is, you don't have to pay it back. It's basically a grant. Now, the guidelines on that are, as SBA has specified, that they will pay $1,000 per employee for that grant. So if you've got 5 employees, you would be eligible for $5,000, and up to 10 for $10,000. I think there was some understanding at first that anybody could apply for $10,000 and just receive $10,000. It's not working that way. It's $10,000. It's $1,000 per employee. Even if you're turned down for a full EIDL loan, you can still receive the grant. So that has really proven popular, and it is very oversubscribed at this point. Waiting on Congress to work out their details. I think they're planning on putting another $250 billion into the PPP And I think there'll also be included additional funding from the DL. On the state level, of course, there's the COVID-19 Rapid Recovery lending program that was funded by Golden Leaf and administered by North Carolina Rural Center. Golden Leaf put out $15 million for up to $50,000 loans. A bridge loan to get you through the rough part until you could do your financing with the PPP or additional SBA loans. That fund was depleted in about 48 hours of $15 million. So the legislature is working now, and I assume their economic workforce committee, I believe in the House. I could be wrong. But they're working on a plan to roll out additional funding. And I think there's a placeholder on that for $25 million that could go up for higher. As far as Macon County's participation in the, the Rapid Recovery Lending Program, I talked to Pat Woody at the Rural Center today, and they've got 20 applications for $698,000 from Macon County businesses that are waiting a reload of that fund so they can be considered. We continue to work with our partners at Small Business Center. Tiffany Henry's been a great asset to our businesses here locally. Western Carolina University Small Business Technology and Development Center. Our chambers, and of course Mountain Biz Works. We try to stay on top of it and assist where we can. These are uncharted waters, so we have to go one day at a time. Any questions?
Yes. Like here in your updates that you sent out to us and information that comes through the media, grants and loans. The grant does not have to be paid back.
That's correct.
But a loan does.
That's correct.
Now, the grant is a federal.
The grant, the only really existing grant is from the EIDL Advance, which is up to $10,000. Everything else, well, the PPP is a loan that can be forgiven if you meet the guidelines of the retaining your workforce, retaining your employees.
Again, appreciate the information you sent out. I got hung on that a little bit. Thank you.
Tommy, you got any clue as where we're standing with our unemployment numbers in percentage-wise?
Well, last month it was 4.2. But
different world this month.
It's going to be straight up. I'm afraid this month. I've talked with Paula Alter, and of course, she is unable to break down, I think, the numbers that are applying just in Macon County, because those applications go directly online to the state. In other words, they're not handed to the local MC Career Work Center. But it is not going to be pretty, I can tell you that. Now, a lot of our local businesses, our major local businesses, are still operating. Tectone, their business seems to be doing well. They've had an increase of order. Duotech is still doing well. Beasley's still working. Tricorn, Franklin Tubular, is laid off, I think, 74. And of course, the hospitality business is just dead in the water right now, for lack of better terms.
Did you happen, for those folks that's watching or listening, Tommy, that are so anxious about their unemployment check getting here? I had calls today. I'm sure everybody ever remember this board's had calls. You got any insight on that at all?
The system has just wasn't built to handle the demand. And I really, I've heard a couple of weeks until those checks, until those start coming in.
We made a call down there, and they really don't know either. They're just, it's overwhelmed. That's all you can make out of it. But these folks is really needing the unemployment check.
And now, when they do start coming with the extra 600 a week that the feds have kicked in, it will be an immense help. The question is when does that come in? And on the local level, that's above our pay grade. And we do have a pay grade that we're in charge of that. So
We appreciate you looking at it, Tom.
One other question, it may not pertain to you. What has this done to our census in 2020? What is this?
We are way behind
I was thinking.
on our, I don't have that exact number on that, but I read somewhere today where there's 7 southern states ahead of us on census information. That's one thing we need to do. We need to renewed effort on that because that really will affect a lot of our federal funding in the future. So we need some sort of concerted effort to encourage folks to do that. I did it myself online. It took 5 minutes, I think. So that's something maybe I could get with the county manager and see gas up.
I think they have done a good job, the census has done a good job with their online system. It's very easy to use, and literally in 5 minutes you can do your household. But I agree with what you say. I think we could make an effort to help with that. It's going to benefit us.
But I would encourage any small business to go through the process of applying for all these programs and all these loans. And just, as I say, stay in the queues, stay in line, stay in contact with your lender. Be prompt with the paperwork you need to supply with them. And just be patient, because SBA and the unemployment folks are doing their best to help. It's just that we're in a unique situation.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you,
I
Tom.
appreciate your comment.
All right, Mr. Manager, let's go with Mr. Cave next.
I can imagine. Documents. See what kind of documents are being
All right, Mr. Warren Cave, our Emergency Services Director. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Had anything to do with war?
Not a lot. Actually, I finally made enough copies for once for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Cade.
So tonight, my briefing is actually going to have 2 different parts. I'm going to cover 2 different things while I'm talking to you tonight. I'm going to talk about the COVID response as far as what our agency is involved with first. And some of you are already familiar with this because I've been doing a bi-weekly public officials briefing email for you, so you kind of stay on the same page with what we know and what we're doing. But I want to go over some of that, particularly for the public, so they understand some of the background on what we're doing, maybe behind the scenes that they're not aware of. So I'll go over that first, and we'll talk about some severe weather stuff second. The first thing that we did, we've activated virtual emergency operations center. And typically when we have a disaster, we'll have an emergency operations center. We'll bring representatives from all our stakeholders together into one room so that we can talk about the things and the issues that are going on. And obviously we can't do that now. So we've actually moved that over to a virtual process, and we have right now it's a bi-weekly phone call that we have all our stakeholders come together. We talk to all those folks. That includes the municipalities, the hospital systems. We started including some of our volunteer agencies. We brought mental health and domestic violence in today because we knew there's some issues we need to consider with that. And basically what that does is that keeps all of the different agencies in the county on the same page as far as what we're thinking and what we're doing, so we can coordinate our activities. So that was one of the big things that we've done that's a little different from what we would normally do with a disaster. We established an unmet needs committee. One of the things that usually happens after a disaster, when you start to see recovery, is you set up an unmet needs committee to address things that the public needs that's not covered anywhere else. And we started this fairly early in the process because we're not to the end of this particular incident, but there are already recovery programs coming out. Tommy, I'll talk to you about some of the ones on the economic development side. And there's some other things there that we needed to get out to the public. So we decided the best thing for us to do was get that committee together early so they could start processing information. And that's headed up by Patrick Betancourt with DSS. We have representatives from both municipalities on that committee, and of course the EDC folks, and we've actually got a CareNet representative on there. And then they bring all those folks and information together. Just today, or actually yesterday, I get confused on what days are which at the moment, but yesterday the call center information that was going, the health questions were going to the health department, compliance questions were going somewhere else. They actually put all that together through the Unmet Needs Committee, and now all of those are funneled through the Community Resource Center so that you have one phone number to call, to ask questions, to figure out who you need to talk to, and then they will point you in a different direction wherever you need to go to make it a little more seamless for the folks that are calling in. North Carolina asked us to assign a feeding coordinator for Macon County, and that job is basically somebody or some agency that will look to make sure that the food needs of the people in Macon County are met. And we actually asked Tim Coggins with CareNet if they would do that for us. They're typically our volunteer resource coordination group and our feeding and supply representative when we have a disaster. So they've graciously done that for us. And one of the first projects we kicked off with them is we branched out with the food delivery program that they have. We now have 5 fire departments across Macon County that are doing distribution for CareNet, where folks that are in need can come by there in the afternoons during the week, as long as the folks are there not out on call. They can come pick up the same supplies there that they would get at CareNet downtown. And those are spread out all across Macon County. Those are at Nanahala Fire Department, Scaly Mountain Fire Department, Colasage Gorge Fire Department, Birmingham, Iowa Fire Department, and Clarks Chapel Fire Department. So we tried to make sure those got all across the county so those resources were available to all areas. We did a plan to use the National Guard Armory as a medical sheltering site or an alternate care site. Obviously, that facility had been transferred back to Macon County, and it's in the process of going to Southwestern, but the transfer hadn't taken place yet. So that was a really good vacant facility sitting there that we had access to some space. So we hope we don't need that for anything. We used it for something else that I'll tell you about in a few minutes, but we've got it set up in case there was a need to, if you have some folks you need to put in a medical shelter somewhere, or if we need to set up an alternate care site, for instance, the moderately ill folks that might be going to the health department. If we can't process them there, we might be able to process them out of the National Guard Armory and keep them out of the hospital system if needed. So we've got some options there with that facility, and basically we're on hold there until we actually see the need for something. We're still processing resource requests for different agencies. We've done some resource requests that I never thought we'd do for the funeral homes. They've asked for some PPE supplies. Private practice providers, the school system, we work with them for some stuff for their bus drivers. So we're still working on that. We're starting to see a little trickle of stuff come in, but still not a lot. Of course, we coordinate with the hospitals for their medical surge planning. We still have routine conversation with them to make sure that our medical surge plans are in place in case we were to need those for anything. We had to develop a plan for non-congregate sheltering if it's needed. And I want to explain what that is. Typically, when you think of a shelter, you think of a big room with a lot of cots, and you put a lot of people in there on those cots together. There are certain circumstances we might need to plan for this particular situation, that we may need to shelter somebody, but they may need to be in their own room. We can't necessarily isolate or tell somebody to isolate and then turn around and put them in a big room with somebody else. So we've made some arrangements through some local hotels to manage that for us if needed. And as long as we follow that guidance, that's actually fundable by the federal government through the public assistance program. So we've already got that set up and operational if we need that for anything. We developed a contingency plan for morgue operations in case we had an unexpectedly high number of deaths. North Carolina, one of their planning processes was for us to have a robust system in place in case we had more folks that needed morgue facilities here than we were capable of handling in Macon County. We're very fortunate. We have 2 funeral homes that are very good to work with, that have some decent capacity. We can manage anywhere from 20 to 24 folks at a time. And that sounds like a lot, but just for my own informational purposes, I looked through the obituaries last week in one of the local newspapers, and I counted 14 in that one section over a period of about a week. So we've got some capacity there, but we did make some plans to handle some sort of overflow to a morgue facility if we did have to have that in Macon County. We reviewed the regulations that we imposed in connection with COVID-19. We looked at how effective they were, and I want to expand a little on that. There was some stuff brought to our attention that perhaps our airport screening process wasn't as effective as it could be. What we found was, and after we went back and looked at the data, I would agree that for the first week, maybe the first couple of days to a week, we were seeing flights coming into the airport that originated somewhere else in an area of perhaps high community spread or something there, coming into the airport from folks trying to come into Macon County to get away from somewhere or something. And those have pretty much stopped. What we're seeing now are business flights that typically originate in Macon County, flying out and coming back. So a lot of this process is designed for contact tracing, so that if we have a flight that comes in from somewhere else and there's multiple people on the flight, then if somebody develops an illness, we can do some contact tracing back with them and help find the other people on the flight. Well, and that's not necessarily the case if you have a business flight that originates here and comes back. So after we looked at the data, one of the things we're going to do is tomorrow is we're going to change the screening process to make that more effective and deal with those issues that we need to look at, and not have to worry about some of the ones we don't necessarily have to worry about. So we're going to make some changes to that internally tomorrow. We work with the PIO and the public health staff to do education to the public. We work with some signage to promote isolation and social distancing. We've had a lot of support from the business community. We reached out through the Chamber of Commerce's to some of the local businesses, and you're even going to see some billboards go up, and you've already seen some billboards go up. Businesses that have electronic signs or regular signs out front, they can change the message on. They put messages on there for us. So that was a good way for us to get the message out to the public. So we've tried to help with that process. Normal operations, one of the things that we talked about with the hospital system this week is EMS operations. The volume that we're seeing is starting to return to normal. We had dropped in volume. We were not seeing quite as many patients as we had been, but we were seeing a little bit more of an extended time period when we were on scene, just due to the personal protective equipment that we had to wear in order to deal with certain patients. And what we noticed and what the hospitals have noticed this week is our volume is picking up a little bit, that we're not quite back to what we would consider a normal level for this time of year, but we're getting back to that number. So we're starting to see our normal business pick back up to what we consider normal. And then the 911 telecommunicators are still conducting extra screening on the phone when they talk to somebody, particularly with medical calls. And we have a system worked out now where we can relay that information on to our first responders to make sure they get all the information that they need. Now, the second part of my presentation that I wasn't planning on doing until yesterday has to do with severe weather. And you'll notice and I'll send this copy out to the media when I get back to the office here in a little while. North Carolina called it severe weather 0412, which was Sunday's date, and typically our issue started on Monday, but I kept calling it 0412 event just because that's what North Carolina called it. So I'm going to talk about the weather event that came through here Sunday night into Monday morning. Of course, we had high water, we had high winds, we had some debris flows or slope failures that have caused damage all across the county. And I'm going to preface what I'm going to tell you by saying that our damage assessment is still ongoing. I thought we were getting really close on our list. About 5 o'clock, when some folks were walking out of the office, we had another phone call for some other stuff we need to look at. So this is kind of a snapshot of what it was about an hour ago, but that's subject to change by tomorrow morning. The good thing about the whole process of this whole event, with no injuries reported, we didn't have any of the fatalities that we've had under some of the other events that affected us years ago. We didn't have any injuries, but we did have some damage. At least 2 residential structures suffered what I would consider major damage according to by debris flow. And for those of you, if you haven't flipped to the back of your packet that I gave you, we typically do what's called a windshield damage survey. And I included a copy of the form that we use, that when we go through a community and we look at damage, we classify stuff based on it's either minor, major, or destroyed. And then we get a quick look at it, we compile those numbers, and we don't really get down into the weeds to say, well, this is $10,000 worth of damage, this is $20,000 worth of damage. We do a quick look, get our numbers together, and come from there. So when I say major or minor, it's based on the information on this damage assessment sheet on the right. 2 of those structures suffered major damage. 2 other structures suffered minor damage by those debris flows. We had 6 commercial structures that suffered major damage due to high water. We had 4 residential structures that suffered minor damage by high water. We have at least 12 electrical services that suffered some major damage due to high winds, and that's where the trees had fallen and pulled the service out of the house or caused some issues with that. On top of that, and I don't even have a count on the numbers, and a lot of it will never get reported to us, but there were numerous private roads, culverts, bridges that were just either damaged or adversely affected by high water that came up on late into Sunday night into Monday that affected a lot of folks here. As of about 5:30, 6 o'clock Monday morning, there were about 4,000 customers that were without power in Macon County, and that's with all 3 of the providers, including Duke Energy, Haywood Electric, and Highlands Electric. And as of this morning, we had gotten that number down to about 1,800 or somewhere in that neighborhood. We haven't gotten a report yet this afternoon, so I don't know what to tell you as far as tonight, but there's some good progress that got made on that yesterday to get those numbers down. 16 people were evacuated from one area because of one debris flow. And I'm going to talk a little more about those in a minute. 3 people were evacuated from an area affected by high water, and out of those people, we still have 5 people that are sheltered at a local hotel, and American Red Cross is assisting us with those folks. I talked about the National Guard Armory a few minutes ago. One of the things we used the Armory for yesterday was we evacuated those folks out of a community, took them to the Armory, helped them get cleaned up, got some stuff together, and then figured out whether we were going to take them to a different residence or we were going to have to put them in a shelter somewhere. So we used that as kind of a temporary shelter in place yesterday to take care of those folks. Out of those events that we had 11 minor to major debris flows or slope failures in Macon County in this one event. And when I say minor to major, I'm not talking about you were driving down the road and saw where the bank had slid off on the side of the road and maybe got up to the white line of the road and DOT kind of had to push it back out of the way and move on, or the bank fell off on your personal road and filled up the water ditch. I'm talking about events that move a significant amount of earth, that impacted a couple of different residences, or at least one residence, and is fairly significant compared to just what we would normally consider a gentle earth move. I'm very cautious when I label those. One of the things I learned in 2004 is there's a big difference between a debris flow and a landslide. A landslide tends to be more material. A debris flow tends to be a mixed material, and it's more liquefied. It liquefies and it floats. So we don't have an official determination on what these are yet, but the safe term to use would be a debris flow or a slope member. We actually asked for a team of geologists to come in from North Carolina Geological Survey to look at our most severe incidents here. And what they do is they come in and look at the ones that we have and make sure the safety of the folks that are below those, to look and see what our problems may be in the future with those. And then of course to look at the root cause to see exactly what the cause may have been, or what the triggers were, and to see if there's anything that we may need to know as far as on the forecast end on what we could have looked at or seen differently on this situation. They actually, today's their second day here, and they'll be back probably the rest of the week looking at these here. The National Weather Service, we actually talked to Greenville-Spartanburg with the folks there. They're going to provide us some detailed rain event information down to the community level for us, so we can kind of pinpoint the rainfall that was in places that there weren't necessarily gauges. They have the ability to take their gauges and to take some radar data and put that together in a model and basically show us some areas of what they think the rainfall was. I can tell you that preliminarily, and these are in ranges, these are not definite numbers. Most of our debris flow issues were in almost a line from somewhere near Parker Meadows or Parker Farm Road, across Tremont Mountain, down toward the Lyle Knob area, down toward 28. And when we overlaid that information and we're plotting those on a map, we're working to get the not just the lat long of the head of the slide, but we're going to plot from the head to the toe of the slides. We're putting those on a map, and when we started looking at those, we overlaid the rainfall data that we already had on there. That tended to be the area of the most severe rain that we had in the Franklin area. Those areas got somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 inches, according to the numbers that we're seeing, as opposed to 4 to 6 inches across the rest of the county. The one anomaly was that there's an area in Highlands out near the Jackson County line that shows almost a similar amount of rainfall, but there was not really a whole lot of activity there. So it's very interesting to the Weather Service folks and the geological folks to take all that data together and look and see exactly what happened, see what they can do in the future. I'll talk about the debris flows. There were two very significant ones. One of the ones on Presley Circle is the one or off of Presley Circle on the road there. That's where the 16 people were actually evacuated from. Even though that's probably not the most severe flow that we have, that's the one that impacted the most people and the biggest part of the community. Probably at the moment, the largest one that we have that has the most significance is what we're calling the Indian Trail flow, which is the one off of Parker Farms Road there that you can see from the ball fields there. We've already been told preliminarily that the volume of material that was moved by that flow is at least as much or more than the amount of material that was moved during Peach Creek. So there's some significant debris there. The good thing is it stopped about 5 feet away from actually a couple of buildings there. There are some issues with that I brought up on our EOC conference call this morning that were particularly important to the county and the town of Franklin. One of the concerns that we're looking at is there's a big fan of material at the bottom of that flow, and of course there's still a stream that runs through there, and that stream is running mud. It's brown. It's better today than it was yesterday, but we're going to have some issues with infiltration of that water going through that sediment there for a long time. Plus there's some debris on the sides of that slide. The bottom of the slide went down to bedrock, but there's still a lot of dirt and other debris on the sides of that they're concerned about not being an immediate threat that you're going to have a large chunk of stuff come down, but over time, over your normal rain processes and your normal freezing and thawing, that's going to filtrate down into the water system there, work its way into Cartucket J Creek, which obviously is above the water system for the town of Franklin. So we talked to them this morning to make sure they were aware of what to expect out of that, and one of the things we may need to look at is either watershed protection monies or something in the future to see what we need to do, if there's anything we can do to mitigate some of that issue up there. And there may not be anything. That was a long, drawn-out process in Peach Creek, and it will be certainly the same way with this one, but it's something we probably should at least look at and explore the options on.
When did that all start on Forest Service property?
No.
It's on private?
Everything other than one of the 11 we found at the moment is on private property. One of the questions we usually get asked is are there going to be any funds available or FEMA funds available for recovery? So I'll put a little explanation in here to talk about that for folks. Typically when people say FEMA funds, they're talking about individual assistance. That's the program that the federal government operates for recovery funds for individuals and businesses. It gets run through a local government or something, and at that point it gets handed out to individuals. To qualify for that particular program and to even get the first assessment, we have to have 25 residences or commercial structures in Macon County that were affected at least 40% damaged and had that much of an uninsured or an underinsured loss. Well, at the moment, we don't have 25 of those that have experienced a 40% loss that's uninsured. So we're still trying to put that data together to see where we get with that process. Most of the damages we've seen, the culverts, the roads, that's typically not covered with your FEMA funds. Typically when that's covered, and we did this during Peaks Creek, that required a special appropriation from the legislature in North Carolina to cover those projects. So that would have to take a completely separate action to cover that. And then on the government side, the government's actually had some losses. Greenways experienced damage, some personal property experienced damage. That's your public assistance funds, which is what I talked about for the sheltering, but this is a different application for public assistance for this particular event. We'd have to have a loss of either $10,000 or 1% of our operating budget, whichever is greater. So obviously for us, that's going to be 1% of our operating budget. And at this point, I'm not sure that we're going to get there. We're looking to see particularly Greenway, and the municipalities are made aware of that this morning, so we'll see where that is. And then of course, I'll end it with saying that our damage assessments are still ongoing. One of the things that we do, if you're not familiar with it, we do an instant action plan. We do a weekly plan that I send out to the EOC group, and we start on Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, and we run through the next Tuesday at 8 o'clock. And we make assignments, and we assign our committees, and we put an instant command structure together so that each agency and each person knows who's doing what. And what we did this week, since we had a severe weather event and we had the COVID crisis, we put all of those together into one incident action plan and pulled in our damage assessment folks, which Jack Morgan heads that up for us, and pull all that stuff together, because in our case, we don't have an unlimited amount of resources. A lot of times it's the same folks doing a lot of different things to make sure that we could stay together through this whole process, get over the severe weather, and then carry on with our regular stuff as we go along with it. So, with that being said, that's kind of long to tell you something that I'd actually given you, but if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer any questions about anything.
I have a question. I'm not sure it's appropriate. Within the community that receives some of the storm, and I see you got commercial structures here, 6 of them.
Yes.
What if you see a commercial structure? I'm assuming that's a business that serves the community. But the parking lot, when I came by today, is still over with mud. And you probably know which one I'm talking about. Is that a volunteer fire department thing to come and wash the parking lot out where it'd be safe for the people to come in there, or is that just?
We could certainly check with them. Typically it's not, but we can certainly check with them. And I mean, they're independent contractors, but we could ask them and see if they'd be willing to do that for them.
Do you need to know who am I talking about? Or
Yeah, no, if you send me an email or something, I'll certainly pass it on to the right people.
And I'll check it again to see
Sure.
when I go back out.
I'll be glad to pass it on and see if that's possible.
One on the COVID-19, this board continues to get calls from businesses wanting to know, can they have one employee, or calls I've received is, and passed along to you, by the way. So, the only thing can we tell them, we have a number for they can call. And but we seem to be getting a lot of calls about campgrounds. Do you have anything?
We had a bunch of questions about campgrounds, and we basically have treated those as the long-term rentals. If they're coming in to do a long-term rental in a campground and they're going to be there for a month, then we typically are not going to have an issue with that, or 31 days over a month. And one of the things that I'm going to reiterate to this board, obviously we can take a very strong approach about our regulations, and we can say this is absolutely not allowable, but we're open to individual circumstances depending on everybody's cases, and we're after the intent of something. We're not after complete compliance, word for word. We are after the intent of something to do social distancing and isolation, and if there's any way through our interpretation of each individual circumstance and we can get to that intent, then we're going to be okay with that. So I would suggest that anybody that has those individual questions, direct those to us, direct those to the sheriff. We will work our way through the process to be as accommodating as we can without getting away from what the intent of our original regulations are.
I think what most of it is the neighbors see somebody coming in that has a second home, and this week's not been as bad as last week, but last week it was every day. And you know, all you can do, you give them the phone number and say, you know, they'll be glad to, and some of the folks have called me, and some of them have written letters, but for the most part, they understand the process.
And folks have been really good. Once we educate folks, once we talk to folks, they've been pretty well compliant with most of them. They understand what we're dealing with. And we would like to be able to say that you're here for 14 days and you don't absolutely leave, but we are also understand that you may have a medical need that comes up, or you may have an issue that you absolutely have to essentially go somewhere very briefly and come back. And if we don't make some accommodations for certain circumstances, at that point I can't tell you to stay there and not go get your prescription. Either that, or I've got to go get it for you and provide that for you. Or if you're out of groceries or out of food, you've either got to run to the grocery store and very cautiously get your stuff and go back and social distance yourself, or we've got to provide enough people to do that for you. We have to take all that in consideration, and we can do that for you. We might could do that for all 5 of you. We might could do that for 15 people or 20 people. But if we had 30,000 people that we all of a sudden had to start providing groceries for on a regular basis, we can't do that. So again, our purpose is to make people think about what they're doing, and we want the intent of our regulations to be followed, not necessarily everything is going to be perfect word for word on what we have in there.
And yesterday at 5 o'clock, you know, the big box stores, their regulations came into play, and I don't know how that's going, but it was what, 25 people per 1,000 square foot?
It's no, I think it's is it 5? I think it's 5 per 1,000.
5 per 1,000.
I'd have to go back and look. There's 20% of your normal occupancy. But
I don't know how that's working.
One of the things we've noticed, and we'll confirm all the numbers, but one of the things I noticed is a lot of those businesses were already starting to do that. They were already routing their aisles one way. They had some controlled entrances in, and were counting people in and counting people out. So I don't know that that's going to be a huge change for us based on what we were already doing last week.
Further questions?
Couple comments. I think the citizens in Macon County have been very well served with our public health, certainly law enforcement, our administration, and our emergency management, I think, has stood out as a shining star in Western North Carolina, and that's been primarily because of you. And I just want to say, from the citizens of Macon County, thank you for the job that you did. I got a couple questions in regards to the 412 severe weather. The 2 residential structures that suffered major damage, were those occupied?
Yes, they were occupied, and I believe both of those were mobile homes that were knocked off the foundation.
And are those where are those folks? Are those folks They're not part of the 5 that's in the motel.
I actually don't know the demographics of the 5. I've got somebody else that keeps track of those folks, where they went. We have a list of folks out of the 16, how many of those went to a residence and where they went to, and how many of those actually went into the hotel. So I can't tell you exactly which ones those are, but it could very well be part of those folks that are still
So
there.
those 5, and this is what I'm really getting at, those 5 that's still, that are in motels, is there assistance to cover the cost of their motel?
Yes, American Red Cross usually does a voucher for a certain number of days or a dollar figure until they have a chance to figure out what they're dealing with and where they're at in the process. The good thing about what we're working with now, we actually have a re-entry process. Code enforcement, it's obviously very important for us for code enforcement to be part of our damage assessment team. They go in and look at those places, and if it's, for instance, one of the minor damages was there was some water perhaps in the service entrance or the electrical panel box, a little bit of debris next to the mobile home, that can be remedied fairly easily with the right people in the right places, and at that point we can start having re-entry back into those areas of the people that weren't really affected. So there is a process to get those people back to where they belong. And then after the period of time with American Red Cross is when we'll have to look at other options to assist those folks and whatever might be available to help them after the Red Cross assistance runs out.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
One of the other things I'd like to say, and Derek will probably reiterate it, you talked about people doing other jobs that they don't normally do. And we've been very fortunate. We have a good group of folks with Macon County. We've actually had good conversations with all of the different agencies that are involved. So I really couldn't be happier with the response we've had from all the agencies and the employees and the volunteer groups and the offers for assistance from folks from making masks to offering to help people with food and clothes and to meet the needs of the people that we're not sure what we're going to do with. So I think that speaks volumes for Macon County.
You said that much more eloquently than I did earlier. So say thank you, Warren. Before you leave, Warren, I just want to piggyback on what Commissioner Gillespie said. Is the liaison for this board to emergency services, your department. I personally, I can't tell you how fortunate that Macon County is to have you here. And what a yeoman's job that you've done. And I please hope that you'll pass on to your staff and your team that you put together, how proud we are and how hard we know that they've been working. It's not easy times right now.
I appreciate it.
We're grateful. When it hits the fan, I'm thankful you're here with us.
I appreciate that. We have some really good folks. We may take the month of July off, but I appreciate it.
Thank you, Warren.
All right. Mr. Manager, you want to move back to?
Yes, the health there.
We're back
they
on.
Closed session. Kathy's here. The health department's here.
I think they're calling in. Is it okay if Kathy's in here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the plan.
Okay.
Okay, I thought Kathy was the point. I wonder who that is.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hey, it's Melissa.
It is Melissa with the Board of Health. We're over here ready to talk to you guys about appointing or actually consulting with y'all regarding the appointment of our new, hopefully, Director of the Health Department. Let's see, subject to the consultation requirement of North Carolina General Statute 130A-40.
Okay. Hang on one second, Melissa. Chester, can you hear everything okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right, Melissa, thank you. I know that the Board of Health has been in this process for, gosh, almost 2 years now, or over 2 years?
Right at a year and a half.
Okay, perfect. I know you've interviewed a lot of candidates, and it sounds like you might be finally coming down to one, so I'll let you proceed with your recommendation.
We have, this last round, we had 3 fine candidates we interviewed, and after the interviews, the board reached a consensus on 1 candidate, and we would like to propose to the Board of Commissioners for Kathy McGaha is our candidate of choice to take over as our permanent director of the health department. She has quite a few years of experience with the Macon County Department of Health. She's a native of Macon County, and we think she would be an excellent choice to take over guiding the county through this ongoing emergency, and a good choice to lead us forward in the future.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. Mr. Manager, lead us in the correct direction.
Yes, sir. You have the contract for you for Ms. McGaha, and it has been the numbers, salary, and travel allowance have been communicated between the finance office, the Board of Health, and myself. They have been put through the county's pay scale formula. Everything's in line. It's my understanding that in a preliminary review that Kathy, as well as the Health Board and as far as administration, are all amicable to the terms in the contract.
Okay. Chester, could you hear all that okay?
I did.
Okay.
And I want to thank Chester for working to help us get that contract put together.
Okay. Do we need a vote upon our board or a consensus?
Yes, I think
Vote
we
is
need
going
to
forward with the contract?
Consensus showing that the recommendation and the desire of the health board, as far as the candidate for health director, that the Board of Commissioners approves that, and the Board of Commissioners is likewise agreeable with the contract for employment.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Bell?
Any comments?
This
Kathy?
appointment would be effective beginning on April 29th, 2020.
Correct.
Thank you. All right, so if y'all correct me, I missed something there. Any consensus?
We have to vote, I think. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the Macon County Health Department
The Board of Health's
recommendation.
recommendation.
Board of Health.
And then they're approving the contract.
Who's the liaison?
I think Paul. But I finished the motion that we accept the recommendation of Macon County Health Board and the nomination of Kathy McGaha as the new health director for Macon County.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bill. Second. We have a second by Commissioner Higdon. Any further questions or comments? Congratulations. We're happy to work with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations,
Melissa,
Kathy.
are you in your meeting right now?
Yes, we are.
All right, enjoy. Thank you.
Good.
All right, see you.
Bye-bye.
So the new health director's on the hot seat.
She is on the hot seat. She can come right on up and give us an update on public health.
This should start on the 29th. What day about April 29th?
It's in the contract, which we'll have
That's
in our packet.
when Carmine Rocket
It would just
leaves.
been drafted. There should be copies laying up there. I don't know if I laid them in the correct places, but
His last
we
day is
just
the
finished
28th, and I'll be sworn in.
negotiating that today.
29th, okay.
From what I
And
understand.
that's April, Kathy got it. April.
I've got it here, if anybody needs to.
Jim's got one. You got one, Carl?
One.
Contract?
I do.
Okay. You don't have one?
For that.
It was laying here when I sat down.
That's my last. This one here? There's. Okay. There you go.
Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir.
That's that.
Paul held this one, since he's a liaison. I don't have one, I would think that was that you're the liaison.
Oh, I got one. Is this yours there?
That was mine.
Oh.
You can have it. You're good. Welcome, Kathy.
Oh, thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's an honor. First thing I'd like to do is, Carmen Rocco is not here, but I want to personally thank him and just tell you all the guidance and motivation that he has given our staff and myself through working at the health department and then taking on this beast of a virus pandemic. It's really been great to have him there, inspiring. So I just hope you know he's done a great job for us.
I agree.
And I hope we'll be able to recognize Carmen at a later date.
So I have given you some data information about the current status of the COVID-19 pandemic. Started with showing you some of the national data. As of yesterday, the 13th, there was 554,849 cases in the United States and 21,942 deaths, having a fatality rate of 3.95%. The next page will show you that in North Carolina, we're having, we aren't considered necessarily right now a hot spot, but we do have 5,024 confirmed positive cases with 108 deaths. You'll see that the state has completed 65,039 tests. We have 418 individuals hospitalized, and 93 counties have been affected out of the 100 in North Carolina.
Now, these numbers, I know we're going to get to congregate living, Kathy, but these numbers do not, the number of deaths and the number do not reflect those in nursing homes, right?
If they have, so if they have been, it's COVID-associated deaths is what this is. So if they have passed away with a
DHHS, I
positive
understood them to
confirmed,
say that they wouldn't count them if you lived in a congregate setting.
if they, from what we understand when we're with the state talking about the cases and the death rates and stuff, is that if they have a lab confirmed COVID test and they pass away, it's considered a COVID associated death.
The reason it sounds low, they've had 30-something in Henderson County. Maybe that's 30-something cases, not 30-something deaths, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll see that in a minute.
Okay.
So, of course, one of the things that we're mostly concerned about is the congregate living setting, the assisted living and nursing home settings, where you have really high-risk individuals. And just so you know, before really we started being impacted by COVID-19, we had our director of nursing, Jennifer Garrett, had provided education for all the nursing homes, making sure that they had what they needed, they understood what needed to happen. We are in communication with them routinely just for influenza, and this is a similar, their response to COVID-19 is very similar to how they would respond to influenza, and we just are in consistent conversation with them to make sure that they have what they need and that they understand and have any questions, we're available to them. So you'll see that in the state, there's 30 nursing homes that have been affected declared an outbreak in the nursing home, 9 residential care facilities, 6 correctional facilities, and 1 other. I would have to go back and look at that. Yeah. So the next image there can show you how the Western North Carolina counties are faring. You'll see, in particular in Henderson County, they have 97 cases and 3 deaths. Many of their cases are in those congregate living settings, and they're dealing with that currently. In Macon County, we've had 2 residents that have tested positive and 1 COVID-related or associated death. The next image there will show you that not only are we looking at North Carolina counties, but also some of the surrounding counties that we border with other states. We continue to look at Raven County. They have 7 cases, no deaths. Towns County, Georgia, 3 cases, no deaths. Oconee, South Carolina, 14 cases, no deaths. The next graph will show you that the Region 1, particular Region 1 counties, again, it's the case numbers and the deaths that they've had for each of those counties. There are some counties still in the western part of the state that haven't had a positive case yet. I think yesterday Jackson County determined that they had 2 positive cases, and that before then they hadn't had any, so it's coming this way. Macon County residents tested. We get asked the question about the number of tests that we have done. I'd like to say that we know that number and very confident about that number. The state guidance has given a little leeway to area providers as to whether or not they're sending us what they call the person under investigation forms, unless they're positive. They have to report. They're legally bound to report if there is a positive result. And the state would notify us and we would begin contact tracing. But working with area providers, we have a pretty good relationship with all of them, and we've been getting, we know, pretty large majority of those forms. So we're pretty confident. We know for sure that we've tested 79 different individuals. There's been 2 health departments that aren't ours in our area that have tested 2 Macon County residents. There's our 2 Macon County hospitals have tested 63 people. And there's other non-Macon County hospitals that have tested 20 people. And then the area providers are approximately 34 individuals for a total of 190 people tested within the county.
So I presume that, say a non-Macon County hospital, are they required to give it to our health department here, those results? Or
we're fortunate that they're part of this. Most of them are part of a bigger system, and so they are giving us that information. And we are making phone calls to try to keep up with and get as much information as we possibly can.
And Kathy, I understand that we're sending our tests to 2 different places, to the state and to a private lab.
Currently, there's 2 places that we can send. We have the state lab, and then LabCorp is providing.
What's your lag time between the test and the result?
It was, we had a significant lag time with LabCorp up until just recently, and I think we've started seeing that it's now back down to about 48 hours on average with LabCorp even.
It was days, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a period of time where they got, when the tests came out and everybody performed those tests, and they got bombarded with not only North Carolina tests, but tests around the country, that they were having a hard time keeping up with that, having the capacity to run those tests. I think they've ramped up quite a bit now, and we're seeing the results come back. I've seen them, within a day even. Yeah.
So have you got plenty of tests?
Yes.
Kits?
Currently.
How many you got?
On average, we're doing about 2-3 tests a day, and right now we have about 30 tests. So we can order more through the state and LabCorp. So
I do that.
yeah, we're working on it. We're making sure that we have those tests available. Just in summary, you'll see that the national fatality rate is running about 3.95%. The state fatality rate is 2.15. Because our numbers are so low, we won't estimate our fatality rate is 1 for the 2 people that we've tested positive. It's just too small of a number that's not a statistically significant finding. So we would have to have a lot more tests to be able to determine what our rate would be for our area.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Back on page 2, and this is just I guess I'm showing my ignorance now. I see two things talked about. One is where you show lab confirmed, and then I also see known cases. So can you talk, what's the difference in known cases and lab confirmed? You don't show known cases on yours, but on the data that I see coming from the state, they will show two numbers. They'll show, I'm not cheating reading it now, they will show, like, as of today at 4:30, there's 5,112 known cases in North Carolina as of 4:30. There's 5,024 positive cases confirmed by HHS. So, how does, do you know what the difference is?
I would have to find that out for you. I'm sorry, I don't know that off the
I
top
just
of my
thought
head.
it was odd, if you confirmed.
Unless it's positive cases that they have found out from other states. Because one thing that we're finding is that people are going, it's likely that people may get their health care in Georgia in this area. That's not uncommon. And so we've had one of our positive cases was actually reported to us from the state of Georgia. So it could be that that's the difference, is that I will find that out though and make sure you understand.
Along with his question on number 2, it talks about the North Carolina confirmed COVID-19 cases. Number of counties, 93. I'm sure it's not appropriate to identify the 7 counties, but are they north, south, east, or west? Or are they all together, or that's not a...
Well, the state has the map on their website,
Right.
so they are identified. I know that 3 of them, Graham, Swain, well, it was Jackson
Is
until
that what
yesterday.
that map was?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So at 4 here in western North Carolina, and the west and the north part, northwest.
I
Yeah.
guess Watauga County's been hit the worst of the far west counties, Watauga.
Yeah, the far west, yeah. I know Mecklenburg and Wake, obviously.
We had a
they're-
commissioner, we had a conference call with all the commissioners from the far west, 14 counties. And Watauga was just,
I know Henderson County
and Henderson County.
has those,
Yeah.
in those residential living centers. And is there any other question?
And the health department, all you folks have plenty of protective.
Currently, we do. We absolutely do right now. And we've got, like Warren said, we've kind of all changed somewhat what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, and we have somebody that is, in charge of inventory now that,
In the email from Mr. Lauderdale, I noticed he sent out a thing from HCA. They're giving classes on reusing everything.
Right.
The first rule of thumb is you never reuse nothing. But they're having classes on how to redo gowns and masks.
We have the different surgical masks that we wear on a routine basis within the health department when we have to be by people, and then the N95 mask that, is if our staff's out testing, they definitely have those N95 masks on. So it's more protective, and they have all the other.
Which
gear on
test
as
are you
well.
doing, Kathy? This nose swab?
Yeah. It's pretty. It's the same, similar to how they test you for flu. They do this, the nasal swab.
Okay. Any questions, further questions? Thank you.
Just like we talked about with Warren, Kathy, we thank y'all, everybody that's working over there, because you don't know.
You have
We're in
incredible
that area, we
employees
don't know.
working for you.
Please
I can
thank your
tell you.
team on our behalf.
Yes, sir.
I sure will. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
All right, law enforcement, Sheriff Robbie Holland. Welcome, Sheriff.
Good evening. I'm asked to come and give an update on what we've done and what we're doing. I'll be as brief as I can. As you all know from our last conversation, our inmate visitation is still taking place. Pre-COVID, it was 2 days a week, Saturday and Sunday. But because we were able to set up the tents outside and with the assistance of IT, we were able to set up video conferencing. So we're actually doing visitation 5 days a week, utilizing those tents outside. That seems to be going very well. I know the families are very appreciative of that, that are coming to visit some of their family members that are incarcerated. We still have the tents set up outside. As you know, again, we set that out just as the issues was starting. So anytime our inmates come in, they come in through that tent, they're processed, immediately asked a few questions, and then once they're cleared, then they go on into the detention center. Our number one goal is to try to keep COVID-19 out of our facility, and the best we could to not only protect the inmates, but just as important is to protect our officers and any other public that comes in there. We're also doing some of the video conferencing with not only the magistrates, but also the judges. I know there's been a lot of talk about the courts are closed, They're sort of closed. People still have due process, and so the judges and the lawyers are working with the inmates to be able to bring their clients for due process and to have hearings and the matters that need to be brought to the judge's attention. So those things are still going on. As far as our caseload, we have seen a decrease in arrest. We've seen a decrease in our incidences. We've also seen a decrease in our domestic violence reports. Doesn't mean there isn't domestic violence happening. It's just less are being reported. Our calls for service are down by 19% actually for these last 2 months compared to the 2 months last year. They talked about, Warren got up here and was talking about a lot of people are playing different roles. We're no different. We're partnering with our emergency management and our health department, and we're playing a significant role in education. We're trying to educate the community about COVID-19 and the precautions that they need to take. We've taken a real stance with that, trying to educate the people instead of trying to cram a law or an order that's been put into place that a lot of people aren't familiar with. And so we've actually designated officers that will answer those calls. I can tell you with certainty, after speaking with my officers this afternoon, we're 100% in compliance with all those complaints that have been brought to our attention and that we initiated an investigation into. The people that I asked my staff, my officers, how are they received by the public when they go and answer these calls? And significantly, they said that the people they're going to address the issue with has been nothing but cordial with the officers. And they give them a packet, they give them a letter from me, they give them a packet about the ordinance, and they also give them the CDC information. And of course, my officers say they wish the people that were calling in the complaints were as cordial as the people that were investigating. A lot of people are getting upset with us. They're calling multiple times. The truth is they just don't understand what a person is allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And so there's a little bit of issue going on there. But we're doing our best to try to educate not only the people that are part-time residents here or visitors here, but also educating our full-time residents that live here. Another part of our job has been handing out flyers and posters, again partnering with the health department on doing that. They were making lots of copies for us. We started making our own copies as well. And I think we've given out about 4,000 to 5,000 copies of those flyers. Of course, the city's not in our jurisdiction. Of course, it's in my county. But we took it upon ourselves to also go to a lot of the restaurants and hand those flyers out and ask them if they would hand it out to people that they were getting takeout orders. And that was going really good. And in fact, some of those restaurants have now partnered with all of us, being a good citizen, and instead of us having to bring them copies of those flyers, they're making their own copies and providing it, which saves us money, saves us time. And so I'm very appreciative of the officers that have took the time, because that's, again, wearing another hat that you're not normally wearing and doing. And so I appreciate their willingness to do that. I will tell you, we've had a couple that have been charged with violation of the order. We've had individuals who were out doing other things instead of staying home. And so when they copped a charge for whatever they were doing when they were out, we made sure we tacked another one on for violation of the governor's order. And so they can take that one home with them too. Been a lot of discussions, a lot of efforts gone in by a lot of agencies. We appreciate the support of our commissioners. As I commonly say to you all, you have a lot of good people that represent you and make you all look good every day. And I'm just proud to work with all these employees. And if there's anything we can do, just let us know. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
I got a thing that's going to happen. I just want to say thank you. Every morning when I get up, the first thing I do is turn the radio on. It's not that the media's not doing their job. It's just that instant time that you're using in the morning time to update 7 o'clock. You're giving out information through an interview with the radio station. That's important to a stay-at-home person that would hear that from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is our your folks got plenty of protection? Or
We've got what we need right now. We're worried. You know, you hear about the not using and reusing. That worries me. You know, we've been so worried about the hand sanitizer. We're going to have to start ordering hand lotion next because it's cracking everybody's skin. And I've tried to abide by the law all my life, but I'm hoping that I don't have to find an underground barber pretty soon because I need a haircut. I need to open business back up. But yes, sir, we've got what we need right now. We can always use more of everything. We're being careful with what we are using, but right now we're doing okay. And we've had a lot of great support in the community. We've had spouses and friends that have gathered up hand sanitizer and made sure that we had plenty. And so what little bit we did have, we got a little bit extra because people went above and beyond to make sure that we had it.
What do you do?
I'm gonna hold that. It's budget time coming up. We'll talk about that later. Right now, we're okay.
Bobby, you were going through your numbers and looks like everything is down. Do you, and this is a loaded question, I know, but
I'm gonna give you my opinion. My opinion is, if you know anything about crime, you know most of your crime is committed against homes and businesses during the day while you all are at work. That's because a lot of our homes are unoccupied and people know that. And so you've got a couple of things happen. For the first time in my career, not only as a deputy but as a sheriff, I feel like that we have a good amount of officers that are out patrolling, out on the streets, covering shifts. I mean, yes, we're still shorthanded because we've got positions that we still haven't filled, but it's nice to have 6 officers sometimes when you've got a full shift. And then you've got individuals who are at home, whether it's a full-time resident or a part-time resident, you've got those places that are now occupied. And so those people that are going around breaking into houses, they're not finding those houses being empty, they're finding those houses being occupied. And 2, you've got people that are concerned with being out. I know you can look and see that there's still a lot of people out during the day, but a lot of those people that know that they don't have jobs and know they're just typical thugs and they're out committing crimes and doing things wrong, they're staying kind of put because they don't want to have any attention brought to them because they know that there's a good possibility they're going to get stopped and they don't want to be in violation. I'm sure there's experts out there who give all sorts of reasons, but that's one of the main reasons, I think, is because just about every place that's available has somebody staying in there some portion of the day.
And as Robbie knows, we'll talk about this a second, on the mental health side, there's a lot of concern right now about those who still need help. The walk-in centers are open. DHS was good enough, I guess, to relax some of the restrictions on not only the process, but the money. So we have got some more money for our area. And the walk-in centers are open, and they are overwhelmed. And so that's going to be a real concern when we do get back up going. Sheriff, me, you've had this discussion, so that the board needs to know that that's going to be a real concern when, especially with the Balsam Center emergency section closing. We're still struggling on where to go, what to do now. Of course, the hospital not accepting IVC. So we're going to have to face that. That's going to be a challenge.
I tell you, you're going to see that increase too as the longer we stay locked down to where businesses are closed and businesses can't do what their normal operations are. You're going to have people getting over to the edge because they're stressed out about their bills, they're stressed out about their finances and all the things that go along. They're not used to having their kids home 6 months out of the year instead of being at school part time of the day. And so you've got a lot of people that are dealing with a lot of issues. And
absolutely.
And so those things are going to catch up to us eventually.
Sooner than later.
Absolutely.
Any further questions?
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Sheriff, I'm going to let me end by stating something very similar to what I said about Warren. You and I have had umpteen conversation, texts, meetings over the past few weeks, and I will look you in the eyes and tell you that Macon County is blessed to have you here and have you as our sheriff. I know how much you worry about this county. I know how much you worry about doing a good job, and if you're doing enough, if you're not doing enough, and you're doing everything in your power based upon the guidelines that we give you and the state gives you to do your job. I know it's not easy. I know you take a lot of heat, a lot more than probably we do at times, from people that are happy with what you're doing, and people that aren't happy with what you're doing, but we know you're doing the right thing. And
absolutely.
I know how hard you're working at this. And again, we're just fortunate to have you in Macon County, and I appreciate your efforts and your team's efforts. And please pass along our appreciation to your guys. And I know you're not going to ask for what you're going to ask for tonight, but I'm aware of it because we've had that conversation. And I'll tell you, I think it's important when we move forward to consider some options. So again, thank you.
Well,
I appreciate your time.
I appreciate it, and I'm just one of many. I've got a lot of dedicated employees, not only with my department, but this county, and we're very appreciative of the support that we have from you all, as well as from our families who sacrifice greatly. And we appreciate everything. Thank you for the kind words.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, administration, County Manager Derek Rowland, man behind the scenes today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we've heard from a few of those great leaders that I'll be referring to now previously, but I'm a firm believer in the fact that a leader is not measured by where they stand in times of comfort. They're measured by where they stand in times of challenge. This for sure is with certainty the greatest challenge that this organization has ever faced. I was on a conference call with managers across the state today from North Carolina, and some of them have been doing it 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, and this is the greatest challenge that their organization has ever faced as well. Whether you want to compare it to drinking from a fire hose, like I've heard Ronnie say, tying your shoes in a washing machine, learning how to build an airplane while you're flying it, all these comparisons would certainly be applicable to the times we're in, with the uncertainty, with the tsunami, I'll say, of information and changes in the way that we're used to doing business from the ground up have been occurring at such a rapid an ever-changing basis from day to day. But as challenging as this situation is, I can assure you that it's not too big for the Macon County government. This is because that every department in this organization has great leaders. You've heard from them here tonight. That have been up here and spoken to you. These are men and women that from the start of this COVID-19 outbreak, they wanted to run to the fight. They've not wanted to run away from it. They wanted to fall in and help wherever they could, do whatever they could do to make sure that Macon County as an organization continues to be able to do what we do best, and that is provide services to the citizens of Macon County. Public service. We are public servants. And no time have these folks, and I've seen it on a daily basis, taken it upon themselves to be there to serve their fellow citizens than they have during the situation with this COVID-19 pandemic. And that is why that I can stand before you today. It is because of the efforts of these individuals in these Macon County departments, these leaders. It is because of their efforts that I can stand before you today and say that Macon County, in terms of everything that is going on with the COVID-19 pandemic, we're still open for business. Macon County I've had many phone calls from commissioners, from members of the public, people having questions about what is open, what is not open. And today, again, going back to these efforts, I can say, aside from the facilities of the Robert C. Carpenter building and the senior services facility that were closed for obvious reasons, namely they would put us in direct violation of the congregate gathering in the governor's executive order, and services through our housing department, which is largely grant funded. Those employees, they have through the weatherization assistance program has required them to pull off of their services. They are now doing training and other office work, but again, largely grant funded. But aside from those few areas, we're still conducting business. The offices largely remain open. There are some exceptions to that where we try to encourage separation through communicating online, via telephone, correspondence back and forth. And this information pertaining to each one of these departments is available online at the Macon County website on our homepage. Anyone can go there. The last update was April 9th. It is continuously updated. If anything changes, a new executive order comes out, changes to our local regulations, all that will be updated and it can be viewed on our homepage. We've heard from our front lines tonight, law enforcement, the paramedics, health department, emergency management. I can't say enough about these folks. They're on the uncertainty and the unknown that accompanies this situation. They go hands-on with it every day. And there's something to be said for that. There's something to be commended for these folks, and you know that they are truly the boots on the ground in protecting Macon County and ensuring that we're doing all we can to address this pandemic. You heard from Warren. He mentioned the virtual call centers, the food coordinators, unmet needs committee, fire departments that have been coordinated delivering food. You heard the sheriff allude to his officers that have taken on not only their day-to-day role of arresting bad guys, but disseminating information, being sure that everybody is aware of these regulations that are constantly seem to be changing, and what they can be doing to assist with this effort in Macon County. You heard they have 100% compliance on all the complaints they've received. It's not been just a few. And the SROs, you know, that they're helping with the schools disseminate food to those children that are on free and reduced lunch, that meals are now being delivered to. Warren talked about the bringing the CareNet. Transit is helping senior services deliver meals from 1 to 5 o'clock every day. Senior services turns into a call center addressing all those COVID-19 related calls to Macon County and those questions. We're having to, transit drivers are still continuing to take people to the doctor, to dialysis appointments. They have equipped their drivers with PPE. They've equipped their vans with clear plastic shower curtains that they went and purchased to serve as a protective barrier, so they can still continue providing that service while protecting the safety of their driver and those folks that are utilizing the service. The sheriff told you about steps he's made expanding the visitation hours in the detention center. That's all done virtually. We have made arrangements throughout all departments, have identified those folks that are able to work from home. IT staff has equipped 35 individuals across Macon County as of right now with the means necessary to work from home. There are many departments that do have folks working from home right now. IT's made that possible. And this is on top of their day-to-day responsibilities. If you would have told me a month ago that this concept of teleworking is going to become a new reality and we're going to have to institute it and have it going in a month, I just said, I don't see how we can do that. But once again, these Macon County employees, they rise to the occasion. There's no job too big for the Macon County government, and we can take care and serve Macon County better than anyone. We went from being from having to run a payroll one week, it was a normal payroll, then the next week you had to run a payroll with completely new timesheets that accounted for the leave administration under the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. All these little intricacies in a system that's programmed to run a certain way, all these changes have caused a lot of extra work on a lot of different departments and different folks. While we're on payroll, we have also tested and we have found that it works. We can have finance office. If someone was to have to go out in finance, we're able to set up remotely and they can run a payroll from their home. We have tested it and made sure it worked, so we're not caught in a situation where we're put in where we wouldn't be able to accomplish that. You have departments like maintenance that recognized in late February there could be a problem. Maintenance and garage, they ordered 2 months worth of cleaning, sanitation supplies, brake pads, tires, everything necessary to keep our emergency vehicles going should shortage in supply lines occur. Also, maintenance has went with enhanced sanitation efforts, cleaning the HVAC systems on Saturdays of these buildings. Just things like that across the board. Building inspections can now, they're equipped to conduct inspections via basically FaceTime with the contractor, show them that, and they can conduct the inspection that way. It was approved by the Department of Insurance. It has to be noted that the inspection was conducted like that, but nonetheless it can be done. It's an extra step that keeps our building inspectors safe and allows us to continue performing the jobs we perform. Part of the governor's executive order was saying you had to go in and say what services are essential and what employees are essential to your organization. Well, I think that every service that we provide and every employee in this organization is essential. If it wasn't, then they don't need to be here, or we don't need to be providing the service. So with that being said, everybody has recognized the role that they play. Everybody has taken responsibility for that role. Everybody has bought into the program to the point where they're willing to do whatever they need to do to keep Macon County operating. Because, you know, while it's not front lines, you know, when you talk about essential services, if our Register of Deeds office is closed and the realtor, the attorney, the buyer, seller, you can't record a deed, tell them that service is not essential. Or the child welfare recipient, tell them DSS isn't essential. Every service we provide in some way is essential to somebody, and that's why that so much effort has went into making sure that Macon County is able to keep running. And so the folks on the front lines are doing an excellent job, and so are those departments behind the scenes that provide services. So with that being said, this uncertainty that we're in now, it is going to accompany us on in to the budget process. That another thing with all this, and all this stuff's been done in a month. It's not like we had a year or 6 months to implement telework and create telework agreements that employees have to sign before they take their computer and their phone home that ITs had to work on and outfit specifically to be able to work with it and incorporate into our system. These EOCs, the virtual call-in EOCs that have had to be coordinated and set up, and all this coordination among these outside entities, this has been a month that all this has happened in. So we have had to be agile and on our toes, but again, those folks are doing a great job. Getting back to the budget, there is going to be uncertainty. I was on a conference call today. It is totally different. When you're in a recession and you're planning to come out of that recession, there are some trends you can look at. There's some economic activity that you can key on to and be able to project revenues off of and be able to use that to project revenues. That is totally different. And so everybody says, well, go back and look at 2008. How did revenues budget in 2009, 2010? This is a recession, they made a great point, is totally different from an intentional stoppage and start back of the economy. We don't know how quick the economy is going to start back. We don't know what's going to be allowed to start back. We don't know when it's going to be able to start back. So all these things tie into a budget process and revenue forecasting that is extremely uncertain. But again, it's a challenge, but it's not a challenge that we can't overcome. What we will see in the budget process, we will see a very conservative approach, and we will have something that, whether it is 1 month, 3 months till it's over, 6 months, 8 months, a year, when it's over, we're not going to be in a situation where we overestimated our revenues. I promise. So when forecasting these revenues, we're going to be as conservative as we can and budget a worst case scenario for this budget process. So that will be the kind of the guiding light as we go into the recommended budget process. Now, where we're at now, all the budget meetings with the departments have been conducted. They were also conducted via WebEx, conference call, and virtual means, which again, totally different. Something that we had to do feels like overnight, and it almost was overnight, but we were able to do that. And again, I can't compliment IT enough for the behind the scenes work they've done. And so with that being said, we're compiling those now, and we're going to begin looking at our revenues. As I said, that is going to be a very, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, but we got a lot of good folks, and it's not a challenge that we can't overcome.
One of the things, Mr. Manager, of course, you well know, the legislature, 2 committees are now looking about, withholding the county's sales tax. That should go into effect. You're looking at, we don't know how many months before we get any sales tax revenue from the state. We certainly hope that don't happen. But we was on a conference call yesterday, and it appears more likely than you think. So that's a big number.
Showing it's nice to have a 6-month fund balance. Any questions for the county manager?
Thank you for the job you're doing, continue to do. It's just something that stayed on my mind, Macon Middle School. Is that something to just update tonight, or is that something I'll talk to you about in May or June?
That is something, I know the architects, they are still doing the walkthroughs, conducting their assessments, and as of right now, we continue to move forward on that project.
All right, Derek, I'm going to close. I opened up our meeting today with the Charles Dickens quote, and I'm going to go back to the first sentence of that. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom. There are a lot of ways that you can look at and decipher that quote, but the way it impacts me and the way I look at it is it's sometimes the worst situations bring out the best of people. And it really brings out the people with wisdom. And Macon County, again, is fortunate to have you as our county manager, and your wisdom and all the things that you just mentioned and rolled through of leading this organization through the changes. I understand there's a lot of behind the scenes staff that does this, but it's we're appreciative of your leadership and exemplifying what I admire that quote to be. So thank you for that. Thank IT, thank maintenance, thank all the staff on our behalf for doing what they can to make Macon County the best place in the world for all of us to call home.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
All right, does anyone need a break, or you just want to keep rolling? People go to the restroom if you need to. Okay, let's do that. Moving on to old business. Discussion regarding placement of sales tax referendum on the November general election ballot. Mr. Manager, I'm going to have you step up here just to the microphone just so you can.
Yes, sir.
We can hear it.
Just had a quick update on that. We had questioned, I think the lingering question was what kind of deadline do we have on being able to make a decision on that? If we're going to put it on a referendum, that deadline is in July. That'll be up in July, so there are still a few months. I think that was the primary update. Chester can attest on the phone. It is quite a resolution that we have to put together if we're going to do that. Is that right, Chester?
It is a complicated resolution. If the board is inclined to proceed with it, we can have a resolution ready in May or alternatively in June, but I think June is going to be your last opportunity. The ballots for the election, I understand, are going to be sent off a request for printing in very early July. So your June meeting is probably your deadline for making a decision on that.
All right. I'm happy to discuss it if y'all would like to tonight. My recommendation is that we keep this item on old business for now and discuss it when it might be a more appropriate time, as we know, have a little bit more knowledge of the unknown that we're dealing with, and to see if it is going to be a good time to put it on our for referendum or not. So,
Chester?
Yes, sir.
When did you say the absolute, would that be May? We would have to have all of our stuff together in May to vote on in June, is that correct?
I think what we would need to do is have some direction, I would say a week or so before your June meeting would be the last real opportunity to push this forward unless you recessed your June meeting to later in the month. The critical point is to get this request coordinated with the director of the Board of Elections, the director there, so that she may get this item on the ballot. I understand she intends to order those ballots very early in July. Is that correct, Derek?
Yes.
I have a comment. Sure. Since my name is attached to this, and I brought it too, I really have a reservation about moving this request forward. I think we want to be sensitive to the time, but I think it looks like, in my opinion, we'd be insensitive. And what Mr. Beal just brought up there about this still question about sales tax, I just think the public needs to know, in my opinion, that this may not, for me, may not be an appropriate request at this time. I realize we may have to revisit, not have to. We could visit in 2 years from now. But I think you need to be sensitive about sales tax and what we're doing here. And my name's on this, and I just feel like I have a lot of reservations about moving it forward.
I don't disagree, and that's back to what I was saying earlier, Commissioner Shields, and that is I don't think there's a major rush quite yet, And I think we'll have a little more knowledge hopefully at our May meeting, whether or not we want to move this forward. But I had the same reservations that you did. So
I just
I
didn't
agree.
want the public to think that we were
Yep.
trying to maneuver around
Sure.
something here, and me personally, I have reservations about it. Thank you, Stan.
All right. New business, consideration of lease with the Gem and Mineral Society of Franklin. County Attorney Chester Jones. Chester?
Yes, gentlemen, you'll remember back in January of this year, you approved a one-year lease for the Gem and Mineral Society of Franklin, North Carolina, for their facility there in the town of Franklin. They desire a 5-year lease, and so you requested me to prepare that and to make sure we appropriately advertise the intent to enter into that lease, and I have done so. First item that you would need to do if you want to proceed with extending this 5-year lease is you would need to adopt the agreement to rescind the existing lease, and then you would need to adopt the resolution declaring the property surplus and approving the new 5-year lease.
Mr. Chairman, as liaison to the Gem and Mineral Society, I would make a motion that we abandon the current lease agreement and approve the 5-year lease agreement as presented by the county attorney and the manager.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bill, a second by Commissioner Shields. Any questions?
Just a comment.
Go ahead.
You need to remember what all the Gem and Mineral Society do, not only for that property, but for tourism as a whole in our county. So if you're not familiar with those folks, when it does get up and going again, and it will, I'd certainly, not only members of the board, but members of the public to go by and meet these dedicated folks. They do a great job.
Thank you, Commissioner. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item 11B, consideration of lease with Cowee School Arts and Heritage Center. Mr. Jones?
Gentlemen, this is essentially the same thing that we just did for the Gem and Mineral Society. If you'll remember, you approved a 1-year lease with Cowee School Arts and Heritage Center back in January. Likewise, they want a 5-year lease, and in order to proceed with that, you would need to approve the rescission agreement that is part of your agenda package, as well as the resolution declaring the property surplus and approving the 5-year lease that is part of your agenda package.
And Mr. Chairman, I also am liaison to the Heritage Association, which includes the Cowee School Heritage Center. There again, these folks do a great job, and of course they're all going through. They can't have the usual thing or the usual fundraisers, but they do a great job. It's been and continues to be, and will be again, one of the things that brings folks to our county. So with that, I'll make a motion that we approve the rescission of the existing lease and approve the 5-year lease as presented by the county attorney and the county manager.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Bill,
Second.
second by Commissioner Gillespie. Any questions or comments?
Just like to echo what Commissioner Cyril said, Commissioner Bill said, in regards to the Cowee School and Gem and Mineral, we're very fortunate to have both of those groups and services that they provide.
Thank you. All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item 11C, consideration of request from the town of Franklin regarding new roof for the town square gazebo. County Manager Derek Rowley.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, as you know, we're in a lease agreement. We have leased the town square property there to the town of Franklin, and they had contacted me. They're wanting to put a new roof on the gazebo. It is in need of a new roof. They would be paying for it, is my understanding, and I was just going to bring that before you tonight and make sure that you all wanted to proceed in that manner. Anything, any other additional information you all might want before moving forward with that, kind of just get a general direction on which way to head with that. I certainly do think it is a nice gesture on part of the town of Franklin, and would be an excellent opportunity to work with them on that.
I'd like to make a motion that I talked with Mayor Scott this morning, and he said it would not cost us anything.
You definitely need to.
That needs to be approved in writing by the county, and you need to authorize your county manager to provide that permission in writing.
So if you, with that authorization, as Chester alluded to, I can get that taken care of.
And that'll be a description of the scope of work is to be performed, right?
Yes, I can get a scope. I'll get a scope of work before we do the authorization letter.
I don't think we need, I think just a.
And indeed, I think there should be a requirement that the work be performed in a good and workmanlike manner and in accordance with North Carolina building code.
Chester, would you be willing to write that letter to us, for us?
Yes, I'll be happy to prepare that for the county manager's signature.
Thank you.
Chester, we're fine with a consensus on that?
I'm sorry?
We don't need a motion, do we? We can do that by consensus?
I think it would be best if you went ahead and made a motion and approved it.
We have a motion by Commissioner Shields.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gillespie.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Chester.
Thank you.
Application for lottery funds. For Public School Building Capital Fund, we're requesting $330,776.72.
Yes, this is the lottery funding that we get back each year. It's been approved by the school board in the amount of $330,776.72. Mr. Chairman, with your signature, I can get that back to Lori, and she can send that off, and we can get our money.
Get a
Our
motion
whole
to approve.
21% out of the 40, right, Mr. Manager?
It's moving up from 14.
Well, it's 14, 19, and it was 21. Now they're rescinding that back down to 17. So out of 17% out of 40 ain't bad.
Get a motion for the
Good.
application.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Gillespie, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Before we move on to the consent agenda, y'all know me and my letters. I was requested to do, I'm a little bit more hesitant with this one, but a very similar letter to what I did last time. This is just a reminder going out to everybody who's leasing about our current restrictions, basically short-term rentals. The last letter I sent out is, I'm sure some of you can imagine, because I did expect it up front. I've had a tremendous amount of support for it, and there's been a few people that have not been very happy with my letter that have displeased with me, and I've been communicating with them via email. Most everyone, once I explained the situation, they've been very accommodating and ease their temperament with how with what's going on here. Just sometimes communication, miscommunication or lack of communication can be at the root of a lot of evil, but I think once I communicated our true intentions from the county, most people have been very receptive to that. I still have several to respond to. But anyway, I still want to ponder this one. I don't want to send this letter out unless all of y'all give me a head nod. If y'all have an issue with it, then I'm not going to. But again, I'm not.
I think it's just another way of good communication, Mr. Chairman, with their taxpayers.
Kind of what I was thinking too.
Is this the ever property owner?
No, this will just go out to the ones that have paid occupancy tax.
What does it cost to do a mailing or something like this?
Depends on how many people you're talking about. I think this one would be around 8,800 times 50 cents.
How much that be?
You know what I mean? Again, had a lot of communication, people wanted to go out, so that's just kind of where it stemmed from. But if all y'all aren't in favor of it, again, I can respect that.
I think, Mr. Chairman, is, communicating with these folks and they really appreciate it. Most of them do. I just like you have gotten the same letters, it's good, and some of them not so good, but the ones that's positive certainly outweigh the ones that's not. So I think any communication that to know that we just didn't pass something and let it go, that we continue to think about that and that and we appreciate them. That's what this letter says.
Has anybody had an issue with it? Paul, anybody? I'm gonna sign Carl's name to this one.
So, I use Ron's phone, I'm selling them for everything.
They all call me anyway, it don't matter.
Mr. Manager,
Yes, sir.
of these 8,800 that this is gonna go out to, are we capturing email addresses for any of these through any means? I mean, you did all this other in 30 days, you ought to do that in a couple.
Well, I don't know, because it depends on how they pay their taxes. One way you know, I mean,
I mean, all joking aside, if we could, if we could.
We had a database.
Database of email addresses and cell phone numbers where we could add that to our emergency services, the sheriff's department could have access to it. We could, I agree, the communications is key, but I don't know, I think there's a lot of folks, and I look at myself when I say this, I don't check my mail once a month usually.
yeah.
I mean,
And I
it's
stand-
just junk mail. So I think that if we could move in that direction, I don't know how.
I stand corrected. The last one was 8,800. This one's a little over 300 that this letter would be going to.
Okay.
8,800 was for our second.
8,800 was for the last letter.
So if it's 8,800 or 300, it's still the same
Right.
thing.
I will check into
I
that.
mean, we could be sending real-time updates to these folks.
Right. And I know that one of the things is that one thing that everybody has to put is an address. So that probably is the catch-all. There probably are some that provide email address, contact information, other kinds of contact information. We certainly
I mean,
can try
maybe
to
we can
capture
add that as a line item when we start the process again. But, I mean, it's everything we do today, any application we fill out, used to we would shun away from our cell phone numbers, but now we put our cell phone numbers, and, I mean, you're not going to get anything without email address.
That's a great idea, and something we'll...
I know the town of Highlands is working on it as well.
And hopefully we won't have to cross this
Right.
bridge again.
But
there's a lot of other things that we could use that for. Just another idea.
Absolutely. We'll get it.
Thank you.
I'm gonna soak on this, the letter for the night before I pull the trigger on it there. But thank y'all for your support on it. Consent agenda, unless someone would like to move, we'll approve it all as one.
Motion to approve is one.
Got a motion by Commissioner Gillespie,
Second.
second by Commissioner Higdon. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. We have appointments, Board of Equalization and Review. This is the memorandum to Mike Decker from Ed Braswell, the recommended Board of Equalization and Review members for the 2020 Board of Equalization and Review appeal hearings are Dwight Benson, Donald Holland, Gary Drake, Christine Flagg, and Richard Leitner.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Commissioner Gillespie, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor?
Before we move on, Mr. Chairman, you need to, with the Board of Equalization Review, a long-term member, probably the longest-serving member, passed away about 10 days ago, Mr. Bill Martin. He served on that board diligently and faithfully, and if Richard was here, he'd tell you how many years. So we appreciate We appreciate Mr. Martin's service to this county in a lot of ways. Of course, he was the FHA director for housing for many, many years, and he served many, many years on the equalization review, serving as chairman for several of those years. So I just wanted to mention that, Mr. Chairman, and appreciation and our sympathies go out to his family.
All right. Y'all help correct me here. I caught wind of something today that we might have the need for a closed session for the potential purchase of property. Does anybody want to bring that?
Yes, just to closed session for potential property acquisition. That's all we need. There'll be no action.
Chester, we will dial you in when we get in the back room, and everyone out here, we will not be taking any action. Chester, is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We get a
on the budget between now.
Need a motion to go into closed session. That's
Motion to go into closed
We have a
session.
motion by Commissioner Bill to go into closed session, second by Commissioner Gillespie. Hang on one second, comment?
Before we could,
Yes, he was incognito.
he's got a new haircut.
And a new haircut.
He copied my haircut.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, before we go into closed session, Carmine, who's been our interim health director for a year and a half now. Carmine,
Yes.
thank you.
Can I
Thank
approach
you.
the bench?
Absolutely. Come on up.
6 foot, sir. Thank you. I just wanted to say goodbye. Probably won't see you again. My last day will be the 28th. And just tell you what a pleasure it's been to get to know each of you and have your support and have a group of commissioners, of elected officials who really care about their citizens and their staff. I felt that from the beginning, and I feel that even today. The relationships I have with the county manager and the sheriff and everybody else that I've come to work with, the staff at the health department's been fantastic. You all have been a great solace to me and have reinvigorated my belief in county government and that things can get done with the will of wanting to do good for others. So I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to come to a county that really puts its heart behind its actions, and to thank you so much for what you do every day, and to know that you have staff that really do want the best for Macon County, and I see that. Not being a Maconian, I am envious of what you have here. But I do think Kathy will do an excellent job. I have the utmost faith in her, and we worked closely for the year and a half. I think you've made it, the Board of Health and you all supported a good selection. And so I wish everyone health. I wish everyone the wisdom to make good choices, because that's what it's going to take for the next foreseeable future. Because it's not only your health, it's your neighbor's health, it's your family's health. And please, please, listen to what's being asked of you. Follow those recommendations. Don't put yourself at risk for a short-term gain and suffer a long-term consequence as a result. You can't come back from dead, and it's that serious. So, again, thank you so much for everything you're doing and for your support.
Carmine,
Thank you.
You came in to our county at a time, and especially our health department at a time when there was some uncertainty. We didn't know which direction we were going. If I could sit here and sketch up what we needed, you hit all those check marks. You've been a pleasure and a joy to work with. And I think you've done an admirable job of leading our health department as we found our new health director. So thank you on my behalf. Any other comments?
Well, I'd like to say how much we appreciate Carmen and the first conversation we had, of course, centered on mental health, and that's still an ongoing thing. Carmen has been very supportive, and came in, just like the chairman said, you came to the county at a time when we were struggling. There's no doubt we were struggling at the health department. You brought stability there, and Not only have you been a good interim over there, Carmen, but I think I can speak for a lot of us. You've also become a good friend. And we'll call on you again, don't you worry, Dave. You have vast knowledge on a lot of things, and we appreciate you more than you know. And we appreciate the friendship just as much as the service.
So if you need a referral from us, don't hesitate.
I hope to retire for the third time, so I hope I don't
To Macon
fail.
County this time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, maybe I'll be visiting as soon as the ban's lifted and the sheriff doesn't lock me up for traveling unnecessarily. But
anyway.
But thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Anything else?
Well, I'd just like to say, we echo what these two gentlemen said. You know, you came at a time where there was some issues with the health department, and those issues had not been adequately addressed. And you were able to do that diplomatically. A lot of folks can address them, but there's not many that can do it the way you've done it. And that's made that department a strong department. That says something about you, personally and professionally. I think that Macon County, you know, you've been our health director. You may have been called into it. You've been our health director, and you've led us through some really trying times. And I think that should be acknowledged. And I think the citizens of Macon County appreciate that.
Thanks.
All right, I just want to say one thing.
No, just thank you, sir.
Ditto on what everybody else said. I say this looking at you. I found a new friend. Thank you.
It means a lot.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor to go into closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
So you're gonna go to the Walmart over in Hazelwood anytime soon? That is a fact. I think it's in that file. Is that the one at the Walmart in Hazelwood?
Okay, thank y'all for watching. I'm going to shut her down. I will not be coming back live when they come back from the open session. This is Bobby with Macon Media signing off.
Security place.